Welcome to Unspoken Affairs. In today's video, I'm going to share a story that's not just about relationships, but about the heavy silence that lives in the spaces between them. This story is one of secrecy, of quiet agreements, and of the things we do when no one is watching. Sometimes the most life-altering choices are made not in moments of loud declarations, but in whispers, those whispers we tell ourselves late at night when the rest of the world is asleep. What I'm about to share with you is not just a tale of love or betrayal, but of hidden truths, buried desires, and the painful reality of what happens when what's unspoken becomes two. Heavy to carry. It began on one of those afternoons where the sun seems brighter than usual, almost too bright, casting sharp shadows across the living room floor. I remember sitting there folding laundry, something so ordinary, so trivial. Yet at the same time, it was the kind of silence where your thoughts become louder than any sound. Each shirt, each towel, every little piece of fabric I folded seemed to echo the dull rhythm of my life, routine, predictable, safe on the surface, but hollow underneath. That's when he walked in. His presence wasn't unusual. He lived in that house too, after all. But on that day, everything felt different. Maybe it was me, maybe it was him, or maybe it was the silence between us that decided to shift. He stood in the doorway longer than usual, watching me, not saying a word. The air grew heavier with every passing second. My hands fumbled with a shirt, trying to keep steady, though inside I could already feel something was unraveling. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. That silence, unspoken yet deafening, was the first step into everything that followed. You see, affairs don't always start with words. They often begin with glances, with pauses, with a kind of energy that builds when two people know they shouldn't cross a line but linger near it anyway. And in that moment, folding laundry turned into something I could never take back. I kept telling myself it was harmless, just a glance, just silence. Silence. But silence is never just silence. Silence carries weight. It carries secrets. And before I even realized it, I was no longer folding laundry. I was holding my breath, waiting for what came next. The days that followed blurred together in strange ways. Suddenly, I noticed things I had ignored before. It's the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. The subtle changes in his voice when he said my name. The way his presence filled the room differently than anyone else's. It was as though my world had tilted ever so slightly, and now nothing sat where it used to. At night, lying in bed, I would replay the day in my head. The smallest details: his footsteps down the hall, the brush of his hand against mine when we passed each other something. Even the way his laugh lingered suddenly carried meaning they shouldn't have. I knew I was reading too much into it. Or maybe I wasn't. That's the dangerous thing about desire. It makes you doubt what's real and what's imagined. One evening, silence between us broke, but not with words. It happened in the kitchen. The house was quiet, almost too quiet, the kind of quiet where every sound seems magnified. I was washing dishes, my hands submerged in warm, soapy water. He came in, standing behind me, close enough that I could feel the heat of his body without him touching me. I froze, heart racing, pretending to be focused on scrubbing a plate while every nerve in me screamed with awareness. Then, without asking, he reached past me to grab a glass from the cabinet. His arm brushed against mine, just lightly, but it was enough to send a shiver down my spine. Enough to confirm that whatever was happening wasn't just in my head. I didn't say anything, and neither did he. That was the pattern we fell into: an entire language of silence, of touches that weren't quite touches, of looks that lasted a little too long. We built a world out of the things we didn't say, and it was more intoxicating than anything words could have given us. But here's the thing about silence: it demands to be broken eventually. And when it did, it changed everything. It was late. The kind of late where the house was dark and the world outside was asleep. I had gone downstairs to grab a glass of water. He was already there, sitting at the kitchen table in the dark, as Though waiting for something, or maybe waiting for me, I hesitated, but then I walked in anyway. Because that's what you do when you're already too deep into something you shouldn't be in. He looked up at me, his eyes catching the faint glow of the moonlight coming through the window. For the first time, he didn't look away. For the first time, the silence wasn't enough. And then softly he said, my name. It wasn't the word itself that broke me. It was the way he said it low, careful, as though he was afraid of it, but needed it anyway. That one word cracked, opened everything we had been holding back. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My voice felt trapped in my chest. But I didn't leave either. And in that choice, in staying there, in meeting his guys, I gave him permission. What followed wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It wasn't like the movies with sweeping gestures or stolen kisses in the rain. It was quiet, was hesitant. It was two people who knew better, but couldn't stop themselves anyway. And it started with nothing more than a touch. The rest. Well, the rest unfolded in ways I still struggle to put into words. Because how do you describe the feeling of stepping into something you know could ruin you, but wanting it anyway? How do you explain the way your body betrays your mind, the way your heart beats louder than your conscience? That night was the beginning of something that consumed me. Days turned into weeks, and the line we had crossed became harder and harder to see, let alone step back over. We became experts at pretending at, keeping our secret hidden from the world. But inside, it was anything but hidden. Inside, it burned. And with every secret meeting, with every unspoken moment, I fell deeper. Deeper into him, deeper into the silence, deeper into the kind of desire that doesn't just touch your body, but claws at your soul. Looking back, I realized it was never really about love. Not in the traditional sense. It was about escape, about filling the emptiness I didn't even know was consuming me, about finally feeling seen in a way I hadn't in years. But the thing about affairs, the thing people don't like to admit, is that they're not just about passion. They're about lies. Lies you tell others. Lies you tell yourself. Okay? Lies that eventually become too heavy to carry. And for me, that moment came sooner than I expected. It was another ordinary afternoon, sunlight streaming through the windows, laundry folded neatly on the couch, just like the day it all began. But this time, he stood there, watching me with something different in his eyes. Not desire, not secrecy. Something heavier. And in that silence, I knew we couldn't keep going. I knew the silence that once bound us together was about to tear us apart. I wish I could tell you that I walked away easily. That I chose the right thing, the moral thing. But the truth is, I didn't. Not at first, because endings are never clean. Not when emotions are tangled so tightly around them. We lingered, we faltered, broke apart slowly, painfully, like two people trying to tear themselves free from quicksand. And yet, even now, even after it all, I still think about the silence, about the way it began, about how something so small, so ordinary, like folding laundry, could unravel an entire life. Maybe that's the lesson in all of this, that it's never the big moments that change everything, it's the small ones. Unspoken ones. The ones you don't notice until it's too late. So if you take anything from my story, let it be this. Pay attention to the silences. Because sometimes what's left unsaid speaks louder than anything else.